In June of 1970, the very first Gay Pride Parade was launched right here in Los Angeles. And then 4 years later, in 1974, a bit grudgingly, a permit was granted for a festival in addition to the parade. That very idea, coming out in numbers, totally immersed in a gay culture, remains central to the Pride experience. So then why is it, after decades of momentum, the crowds expected to reach over 500,000 plus this year, are some people calling it lame or tired? Well, we got a chance to sit down with current Mayor John Duran of West Hollywood for the second time. Here is my interview. Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for meeting with us today.
Of course.
And taking the time out to discuss some important matters. Mayor Duran, last time we spoke about 30 years of AIDS. And in doing so, we spoke a great deal about then and now. So in keeping with that spirit, I would like to continue that discussion about then and now, but this time regarding Pride Los Angeles and its surrounding issues. At a recent town hall meeting at West Hollywood Park, Mr. Rodney Scott, the executive director of Christopher Street West, said he heard community concerns that dance space and areas for youths and transgenders stood at the top of the list. Is space really the only problem with the Pride experience, or has it somehow become lame or tired because of the experience lacks anything one can find bigger and better at, let's say, Long Beach Pride or San Diego Pride?
Okay, that's a good question. We had a very good, contentious debate about Pride in West Hollywood. And, I reminded people that were listening in about sort of the early origins of Pride. Because my first CSW festival was in 1979, so it was 32 years ago. So I haven't been to all of the gay prides, but I've been to most of the gay prides. And Pride has always, in my mind, reflected whatever is going on in the community. Right? So back in the late 70s, early 80s, it was all about coming out. It was all about PFLAG. It was all about, come out wherever you are. And then Pride and the festival and parade took a shift in the 80s because we had an epidemic in our midst. And the parade and the festival became angry and very angular, and people were agitated, and all the new organizations that were being founded around the epidemic. And then the 90s, we kind of got into the Clinton years, and it was all about military and don't ask, don't tell, and ENDA and equality under the law. And then through the 2000s, we saw everything shift again into marriage and families and children, and the fact that transgenders are now part of the event. So, Pride has kind of been moving along and shifting along, and it's often, I think, a reflection of the community rather than setting the community's agenda. I think the community just kind of evolved.
Yes, but what does Councilman D'Amico's charges that the political symbolism of the event had kind of withered away in favor of pure partying say to you? What does that say to you, and how much merit do you give that idea?
Well, I think different people have different experiences of Pride. And, I think we have to sort of think about all the different people that come to Pride. People like me, for example, been doing it for 30 years. So yeah, the same thing year after year after year. It does appear to be a bit tired and maybe in need of revision and something new or exciting because I've seen the show 30 times, and I kind of want something new and different.
Right.
But if you're a lesbian couple coming down from Bakersfield with your kids, and this is your first Pride event, and your first time you've been around 400,000 LGBT people.
There's nothing lame or tired about it.
Everything is exciting. The churches marching, the synagogues marching, the parents and friends, all the different diverse groups, racial and religious minorities. It's all very exciting.
And I've never heard those groups of people walking away from a gay pride parade saying anything, other than that it was in fact exciting and liberating and safe, for them. So
that's our challenge. How do we deal with the two different groups?
Because in West Hollywood, most of your and Mr. D'Amico's constituents happen to be around the 40 to 55 gay males who live, work, and play in the gayest city on the planet. Nearly 40% of West Hollywood identifies as LGBT or T. Might that have something to do with the discussion of what now? I mean, by and large, there's a group of people here, the 37th percentile of the city, who has seen the parade and who by and large do live out liberated lives. Mm-hmm. Is it fair that from a couple of comments from the peanut gallery, let's say, does that warrant a $10 million overhaul?
Well, I think you have to just remember, what is our role, those of us that live here? You know, is the parade and festival for us, or are we the host? And the way I've always looked at it, we're the host. We're the host for 400,000 people who travel here from as far south as San Diego, people who fly in from other parts around the country to come to LA Pride. So really, we're the host. Does that mean that I need to get something out of the parade? Do I need to get something out of the festival? That'd be one way of asking the question, but I think it's the wrong question. You know, I think the better question is, all right, got this festival going on, who am I going to invite over to my house for brunch? Which of my friends who don't live here do I want to have come by and join me so we can go do the parade and festival together? You know, and then you're sort of playing host, and I think really that's more our role, those of us that live here, is how we play host to all of Southern California.
Well, what does the Gay Pride Parade and Festival mean, really, in this post-taboo, post-oppression, post-discrimination, post-closet, city? Do you think that we should take a leadership role in evolving into a cultural and/or arts festival?
Yeah, I think it's many things. It's kind of like, if you have 7 blind men touching an elephant, what is an elephant? And some would describe the tusk, some would describe the legs, some would describe the tail, some would describe the trunk. It just depends on who's looking at it. For some 50-year-old man, maybe on the street, maybe he just came out at 50, and it's his first gay pride parade. He's going to have a very different experience than a 50-year-old who lives in West Hollywood who's been here for 30 years, right? So it has to be sort of something for everyone. It is political, yes, and it is cultural, and it is music, and it is food, and it is dancing, and it is gathering of community, and it is a reunion. It is all those things.
Because they spoke of the marketplace bazaar mentality required to pay for the entertainment and turning away from the political activism in favor of a county fair type deal. Do you agree with that assessment? And if so, how would you reinstill that sense of symbolism while maintaining a celebratory atmosphere?
I think we have to let people just be themselves. The parade always starts out with the dykes on bikes, all right? You get 100 angry lesbians on Harley Davidsons. I mean, is it art? Yeah, it's art. And is it a political statement? Yeah, because it's about gender and gender roles, and that this is a very contrarian idea of having women on Harley Davidsons. And then if you look at people who are marching in the parade, there are people who are activists and political, and they're being political. But there's other, like gay dads, the Pop Luck Club, who are pushing their kids in strollers. And it has to be all of those things. I don't think we can let any one group or any one set of ideas dictate for everybody else what Pride should be. I think we should just be the neutral venue, the neutral host. We are the host of the party. Let people come as they are, and know that every year each Pride celebration parade is going to be different, slightly, than the year before.
So no overhaul?
I wouldn't say no overhaul.
No more land?
I think some of the challenges are, all right, the issue about land, we're having to redo the park right now. So at some point when the park's all done, we're going to have more space to play with. Right now we do have some logistical challenges because the park is being reconstructed. But one of the questions that come up is does the parade have to be 3 hours long? Does it have to be 3 hours long? Do we have to let every person who wants to march in the parade march? Well, at one time, that's what we did. Anybody who wanted to march, you could just come in off the street and get in the parade if you wanted and jump out of the parade. Right? That's where we came from. Now people are saying, well, can we spruce it up a little, clean it up a little, floats, maybe say no to certain people? That's a really tough thing to do. It's a really tough thing for who's going to decide who can actually march and who can't, right? So we either have to decide to be all-inclusive or we have to decide to be restrictive. I think our community culture really values being inclusive rather than exclusive. And so it's probably more likely that we'll keep it open. But there may be ways to sort of combine things. Like a lot of corporations want to display their corporate logo. Well, somebody came up with the idea of having corporations sponsor floats, much like the Rose Parade. Rose Parade has beautiful floats brought to you by this city or this company. Well, why not have the same sort of presentation on floats in our Pride Parade so it's not 20 people jumping to the back of a pickup, which is what we get sometimes. So there may be ways to sort of spruce it up and yet at the same time make it all inclusive.
I see.
And I think that's the challenge for CSW. And again, the city, we don't put on the parade. I mean, we're just the venue. It's the board of directors of Christopher Street West, a nonprofit organization that puts it on. So we can have some input into the decision, but hopefully Christopher Street West is out gathering input and ideas all year long.
Mayor, have you any questions you'd like to ask the community?
I'm not sure about questions for the community, but I think this is the challenge that I would put out there, is that now that we are becoming a more mature political movement, meaning we've all been doing this now for 50 years, right? It's not the 70s anymore, it's not the 80s, it's not the 90s. We're in, the next part of the 21st century. different people have different experiences about what gay means. For some of us who came out in the 60s and 70s, it was about overcoming shame and coming out and risking job and family and everything else by just the radical notion of being free and open. That is not the experience of a 20-year-old LGBT person today who came out in high school, right? They've got their straight friends, they've got their straight allies, they have their role models, they see Ellen DeGeneres, you know, they see the out rugby player. They're having a very different experience. And so those of us that have been around a while have to be willing to accept that the younger generation has a completely different experience. It's not going to be dictated by ours. And vice versa. Hopefully the younger generation will realize that their elders that came before them, whether it's 20 or 30 or 40 years older, had very different life experiences that because of what we went through, they're able to enjoy the freedom that they have today. We paid the price in blood and in anger and in a lot of trauma. You know, we paid the price for this generation to be so open and free.
We did,
So
John.
as long as they cross-talk to one another, I think we'll all be fine.
Terrific. I just have a couple of more questions for you. Who answers the phone at 3 a.m. when someone calls and says the place is on fire? Wow.
Yeah. We had a serial
fires.
arsonist. We had 53 fires in the greater West Hollywood area over New Year's weekend. And
What were you thinking?
well, it was pretty, I think, traumatizing for the 5 council members because, you know, we get a call whenever a major incident occurs. We find a dead body, there's been a suicide, or something more serious than that. Whenever there's a fire, whenever there's a major event or incident in the city, we get a call at 3 in the morning. Well, there for 4 nights in a row, we were sort of being buzzed like every 2 hours around the clock about another fire, another fire, another fire.
Right.
Fortunately, 4 days passed. We caught the guy. He did turn out to be of a Looney Tune.
So he didn't represent any organization?
Nothing,
it was an
just kind of a rogue
person.
Domestic terrorist, but somebody who said he wanted to take action against Americans. And so truly a domestic terrorist in the vein of Timothy McVeigh, like Oklahoma City.
Right.
Fortunately, nobody got killed when he was out there using cars to set apartment buildings on fire.
Correct. Speaking of fire, how's the smoking ordinance going?
We finally
Is that settling in a little more?
We finally reached a compromise. I mean, I was in the minority.
Oh,
I was
good.
in the minority of that issue. I mean, I think originally the sponsors of the initiative wanted to ban smoking in all outdoor patios, and that was just too broad for West Hollywood.
Sure.
Apartments and condos telling people they can't smoke on their own residential property, I think would have gone too far. Or nightclubs, like the Abbey, like Mickey's, like the Revolver, like the Roxy, like the Rainbow, telling people they can't smoke on those patios when they're out clubbing and drinking would have gone too far. We ended up with a compromise that affects really restaurants and patios now, and so it was more carefully, narrowly tailored, and I think we're starting to settle in with some peace around it.
So the sidewalk is still okay?
Sidewalk is where they're supposed to go. I mean, I don't agree with the ordinance. I think it's very flawed, but it's a compromise.
Mayor, thank you very much. Thank you very much for meeting with us. This is Anthony Gioffre reporting for the WeHoNews.com on special assignment.